Greetings, friends. The Americans suddenly remembered that they once promised to end the Russian-Ukrainian war within 24 hours. And Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff said it wouldn't be a bad idea to do this following the example of Iran and Israel.
I truly think that when you see the hope that is now clearly radiating as a direct result of what happened here, I firmly believe it could also spread to Russia and Ukraine. That's what we're hoping.
And almost immediately the Russians rejected this. Vladimir Putin's press secretary Peskov said that this is impossible and that it's impossible to compare these two wars, because as you can see, Israel attacked unprovoked, while so-called Russia was highly provoked.
From our point of view, these are incomparable conflicts by their very nature and character. In fact, the start of the conflict and the strikes on Iranian territory were absolutely unprovoked.
On Russian television, they went even further and openly mocked Steve Witkoff. But they're used to it. They constantly make fun of him there. And Witkoff still believes the Russians.
What's the message here? Either it's a complete lack of understanding, or it's just a mockery of common sense, hoping that with the help of this Western propaganda machine, they can really confuse people and make them lose touch with reality.
But personally, I support Witkoff's initiative because according to the logic of his statement, American strategic aviation should bomb Moscow or at least Voronezh, and that wouldn't be so bad.
We hope that people will look at what happened in Iran and say, you know what? We also want to be part of such a peaceful process.
Unfortunately, we can't count on the Americans to put any kind of pressure, even on so-called Russia, let alone carry out bombings. But Trump is trying to do something again. The head of Turkey, Erdogan, stated that he spoke with Trump. And Trump said, if Russian President Putin comes to Istanbul or Ankara to resolve the issue, I will come to Istanbul or Ankara as well. But this has already happened before. I think Vladimir Putin will refuse again. And in general, the Russians have much more important things to do besides waging war against Ukraine. They still need to bomb Britain.
Russia must destroy all ports and naval bases of Great Britain.
I have a business proposal for you, friends. The Russians won't be able to bomb either Ukraine or Great Britain if they don't have any arms, legs, or their empty heads. And to make sure that's the case, donate to Russories.
There are things that can't be seen, even from drones. For example, your support is present in every flight, in every destroyed target. You didn't just donate, you energized us and the drones.
The payment details, as always, are in the description of this video, especially since we're getting more and more new requests. And there's also some good news about countering Shaheds, but for now I won't share the details publicly. In short, chip in a couple of hryvnias. And if you still haven't subscribed to my channel, make sure to do it. Right now, yesterday, the so-called Russian Federation's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov raised the alarm because, believe it or not, there's yet another threat to so-called Russia.
I think there is a threat, of course. The threat is getting worse. And this threat
began after the new NATO summit, that same absolutely ridiculous, pointless, useless summit.
We can see that this is probably perhaps the most unsuccessful NATO summit.
From my point of view, it was not just the most atypical, but I would genuinely say a truly tragicomic and absurd summit.
The summit was an absolute failure. It can basically be ignored altogether. But the Russians still became anxious over the fact that NATO allies will be increasing defense spending to 5% of GDP.
Therefore, of course, this arms race requires serious attention.
Let me remind you that part of these funds, according to NATO's decision, will be directed to aid Ukraine. And the Russians are already preparing a retaliatory strike, to begin with, against Britain.
We must completely and utterly deprive the United Kingdom of all access to the open sea. Russia must destroy all ports and naval bases of the United Kingdom.
Don't ask why. In response to NATO's decision, the Russians decided to take offense specifically at the United Kingdom. And in general, they are not threatening it. They never have. All of this is just made up by someone.
The threats are extremely exaggerated. They are taken from nowhere.
Jokes aside, let's talk seriously. The Russians really wouldn't mind starting another 1 or 2 wars against one of the European countries or against the United Kingdom. But there are some restraining factors for them, and the main one is the Russian-Ukrainian war. As long as the Russians haven't frozen it, carrying out such operations will be extremely difficult for them. The Russians need a freeze in order to free up resources and improve the state of the Russian economy, which is facing more and more problems. We have already discussed the state of the Russian economy and its main problems, as well as the statement by the so-called Russian Minister of Economy, where he noted that the Russian economy is moving toward a recession. But yesterday, another serious problem became known. Bloomberg reports that the Russian economy may face a systemic banking crisis within the next 12 months. The reason is that large Russian corporate clients as well as smaller ones have taken out loans they are unable to repay. The publication believes that the bad debt of the books of Russian banks is estimated in the trillions of rubles. But surely all of this is a lie. The Russian economy is in excellent, the very best condition. After all, Skabayeva couldn't possibly have lied.
The ruble is strengthening, and GDP growth rates are surpassing those of Europe.
Skabayeva definitely knows better than leading Russian economists who have noted that the Russian economy has started to shrink by 0.6% in a single quarter, and this is the first time since the start of the full-scale invasion. Meanwhile, Vladimir Putin lives in his own parallel reality. In it, everything is growing for him.
Industrial production has also increased. Agriculture is up by 26. This is one of the best indicators in the world today.
But in reality, the agricultural industry in so-called Russia has collapsed. And that's not just me saying it. That's what the agricultural machinery manufacturers themselves are saying.
And the rate of tractor assembly at our pride of domestic tractor manufacturing, the Kirov plant, has dropped by half or even more, and orders have fallen not by 5%, not by 10%, but actually by 30%.
If you examine the Russian economy by sectors, you can see a rather interesting pattern. The civilian sectors of the Russian economy are shrinking, but those connected to the military industry are growing. The problem for the Russians is that the military industry practically does not generate added value, and overall macroeconomic indicators are deteriorating.
And they are starting to actively lay people off at one place. For example, they are planning to fire 2,000 people. At another 4,000, these are large enterprises.
A significant factor here is also the labor shortage, because many Russians have left, many have died or are in the process of dying in the war against Ukraine. And the Russian Federation is afraid to attract new migrants.
So the country has simply run out of people. Here, as you know, unemployment is below the hygienically necessary level, so they have to pay more.
There is an extreme shortage of personnel.
As I said earlier, I am firmly convinced that the biggest problems for so-called Russia will begin not even when enterprises start going bankrupt, but when there is simply nothing left to pay Russians for participating in the war against Ukraine. Because right now their entire system of voluntary compulsory mobilization relies on this. If there is nothing to pay the cannon fodder, they won't go to war. And then Vladimir Putin will have to announce a new mobilization or freeze the conflict.
The main reason for most of them is to support their families. They didn't have enough money, meaning that while living here in Yakutsk, they couldn't find a decent job in their field. So they go there.
All this news is, without a doubt, pleasant for us. And I am convinced that we will witness the collapse of the so-called Russia. But that will happen someday, that will be later. Economic problems will not hit Russia immediately. And right now, the Russian-Ukrainian war continues. Unfortunately, we have bad news from the east of our country. Deep State reports that on the section of the now former Volodar tactical group, the defense continues to collapse rapidly, and the enemy is making significant advances. If we do not carry out a comprehensive army reform, over time our defense may not hold at all. There is yet another serious problem, a shortage of FPV drones. This shortage still persists. In a few weeks, the situation with government supplies should improve, but we still need your donations for the current needs, because we provide our soldiers only with the best equipment. And thanks to you, our military received another 400 new FPV drones just yesterday.
Wishing you good health.
We, the fighters of the UAV unit Griffin 501, would like to express our gratitude to Mr. Sternenko and his entire community for providing 50 FPV drones. There are things that can't be seen even by drones. For example, your support is present in every flight, in every destroyed target. You didn't just donate. You energized both us and the drones. You gave us eyes when we needed to see. You gave us strength when we needed to act. And thanks to you, we work with pinpoint accuracy. Glory to Ukraine.
Glory to the heroes.
We are the 44th Brigade, 1st Mechanized Battalion. And our unit, Fierce Birds, we thank the Sternenko community for providing us with drones that will help us destroy the enemy in the Donetsk direction. Glory to Ukraine.
Gentlemen, I wish you all strength. We are the soldiers of the 104th Brigade, 61st Battalion UAV Platoon. We want to thank the Sternenko community and Serhiy Sternenko himself for providing us with 50 Rusoraizi. Donate for Rusoraizi. Support the armed forces of Ukraine, and glory to Ukraine. Glory to the heroes.
We wish you good health. We, the soldiers of the 23rd of September Array Rifle Battalion, are grateful to Serhiy Sternenko and his community for providing the drones. We never tire of repeating our words of gratitude for your good deeds. We also want to say that the 23rd never stops doing good deeds, not even for a minute. We are destroying the Russians. So, together, onward to victory. Glory to Ukraine.
Glory to the heroes. Friends, as of now, 124 different units are waiting for deliveries of kamikaze drones from our community. We have no right to let our warriors down, so I ask you to continue supporting the security and defense forces of Ukraine.